The billionaire who fired his pregnant designer for creating maternity wear watched her rejected collection earn $80 million, then discovered he'd have to beg for the chance to stand beside her again. Before we dive into the story, take a moment and tell us where you're watching from. It helps new viewers find stories like this. Thomas Blake stood at the wall of windows in his corner office, 42 stories above Manhattan, and pressed 2 fingers against the glass. The city stretched cold and geometric below him, November light turning steel into mirrors. His reflection stared back, silver threading through black hair, slate-gray eyes, a face he'd spent 20 years learning not to feel in. His hand left a mark on the window. He noticed, but didn't wipe it away. Behind him, his executive team waited in silence. 9 people in chairs that cost more than most design salaries, their tablets glowing in the dim morning light, their expressions carefully neutral. They'd been reviewing portfolios since 5 a.m. His third espresso sat untouched on the conference table, a ring of condensation forming beneath the cup. "Portfolio 47, his lead buyer announced, her voice cutting through the quiet. Thomas turned. The conference table sprawled with submissions, careers compressed into 20 pages of sketches, fabric swatches, technical specifications. Each one a designer's prayer that today they'd be seen as enough. He lifted the portfolio. The cover page made his chest constrict before his mind caught up. Maternity Capsule Collection, Scarlett Archer, Senior Designer. His jaw tightened. He knew the name. 7 years she'd worked for him. 7 years of flawless technical work, innovations in tailoring that other houses tried to steal, a design sense that understood architecture and grace in equal measure. He flipped through the pages anyway. Wrap dresses with hidden nursing panels, trousers with elastic architecturally concealed, blazers that accommodated changing bodies without sacrificing silhouette. The technical work was perfect. The vision was clear. The execution was brilliant. He hated all of it. No. He dropped the portfolio flat on the table. The slap of paper on wood cracked through the silence. This isn't fashion. This is accommodation. His CMO leaned forward, careful. The market research suggests significant demand. I don't care what the research suggests. Thomas's voice stayed level, controlled, but everyone in the room went still. They knew this tone. We create aspiration. We define beauty. We don't design for... He gestured at the portfolio with visible distaste. Distraction. Someone offered tentatively, Scarlett's one of our best technical designers. 7 years with us. Her tailoring innovations have... Then she should know better. Thomas pushed the portfolio across the table, away from him. His fingers left prints on the glossy cover. These designs are competent. They're also completely antithetical to our brand identity. We dress power. We dress success. We dress women who command attention, not women who've... He paused. The room held its breath. Lost focus on their careers. The silence that followed felt thick, dangerous. His head of HR touched her tablet screen, her expression professionally blank. Should I schedule a feedback session with Ms. Archer to discuss? No. Thomas gathered his own notes, pages of critique in his precise handwriting. 47 portfolios reviewed, 47 judgments rendered. Terminate her contract. Today. I won't have this aesthetic anywhere near my company. His HR director's fingers stilled on her tablet. She's currently on the design floor. Should I wait until end of day or now? He met her eyes. The morning light behind him turned his face into shadow. I want her and this portfolio out of the building within the hour. Security escort if necessary. No one spoke. Somewhere in the building, 42 floors below his office, Scarlett Archer was probably at her drafting table by the window, probably working on a pattern, her hands moving with that certainty he'd watched in 100 design reviews. Probably 7 months pregnant by now, if he'd calculated the timeline correctly from the portfolio date. He didn't let himself picture it. The team filed out in silence. Through his window, Thomas watched the city, infinite, geometric, clean. His phone lit with a message from security 17 minutes later. Designer Archer escorted from premises, personal items being shipped. He deleted the notification, pulled up next quarter's projections, let the numbers fill his mind the way they always did, precise and safe and incapable of falling. The espresso had gone cold. He drank it anyway. The design floor hummed with Friday energy, fabric cutters whirring, sketching tablets glowing, coffee and sizing spray mixing in the converted loft space. Scarlett Archer stood at her drafting table near the window, 7 months pregnant, auburn hair twisted into a working knot, her hands moving across a pattern with 15 years of muscle memory. She wore one of her own designs, the black jersey wrap that flowed over her belly without apology, practical and elegant. Around her, junior designers asked questions she answered without looking up, her focus absolute. Her phone buzzed. Then again. She ignored it, adjusting a seam allowance by 2 millimeters. The elevator dinged. She glanced up. 2 security guards and her department head crossed the floor, their trajectory unmistakable. Her hands stilled on the pattern. The studio went quiet, that particular silence when bad news arrives in uniform. Her department head wouldn't meet her eyes. "Scarlett, you need to come with us. Bring your personal items." Her mind went blank for 3 seconds. What? But she already knew. Her rejected portfolio. Thomas Blake's disgust radiating through every executive who'd sat in that meeting. The head of security stepped forward with a cardboard box. "Your access has been terminated. You have 15 minutes to clear your station." Scarlett looked at her drafting table. 7 years of work, samples, tools, a framed photo of her grandmother who taught her to sew. Her hands shook. She pressed them flat on the table to stop it. Did he say why? Her department head finally met her eyes. Something like shame flickered there. "He said your work showed divided focus." The elevator ride down 42 floors took 90 seconds. Scarlett stood between 2 security guards, the cardboard box clutched against her belly, her laminated ID badge already deactivated and dropped in the receptionist's dish. Through the glass walls, she could see former colleagues watching, some with phones raised. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Her reflection in the polished steel doors showed a woman whose posture hadn't broken yet, whose face hadn't crumpled, whose hands gripped cardboard so hard her knuckles were bone white. The elevator dinged at the lobby. Chrome and marble stretched toward revolving doors, the Blake Fashion logo etched 8 feet high on the back wall. She'd walked under it every morning for 7 years. Proud. Now the guards flanked her like she'd stolen something. Outside, November wind cut through her wrap dress. The box was awkward, unbalanced. She shifted it to her hip. One of the guards, younger, looked uncomfortable. "Need help to the—" "No." Her voice came out steady, colder than she expected. She walked. At the subway entrance, someone jostled her. The box tilted. Fabric samples spilled onto the sidewalk. Silk, wool, cotton blends she'd sourced herself. A man in a suit stepped on a swatch of champagne crepe she'd planned for evening wear. She bent to gather them, her belly making the movement awkward, tears finally burning her throat. But she didn't cry. Not yet. Not here. 6 weeks blurred into controlled chaos. Scarlett's daughter arrived 3 weeks early in a birthing center in Brooklyn, 8 pounds of red-faced fury with auburn hair already visible. She named her Lily, after her grandmother. The first 2 weeks disappeared into feeding, sleeping, healing, the particular exhaustion of new motherhood mixed with rage that wouldn't let her rest. She burned through savings. Her apartment lease expired in 4 months. She couldn't find work. Her firing had gone viral among fashion insiders, whispered proof that pregnancy made designers unreliable. At 3 a.m., nursing Lily in the dark of her bedroom, she made a decision. She opened her laptop one-handed and drafted an email to 20 small fashion collectives with her rejected portfolio, her story, and a single question. Will you help me prove him wrong? Within 48 hours, an ethical fashion startup called Common Thread responded. 3 employees, a warehouse space in Bushwick, and a crowdfunding platform. The founder, Emily Kim, spoke quickly on the video call, her eyes bright with possibility. We'll provide production infrastructure. You provide designs. We split profits equally, 50-50, full transparency. Scarlett said yes before the call ended. She worked in stolen hours, while Lily napped at 2 a.m. during feeds. She refined every sketch, perfected every pattern, sourced sustainable fabrics with Emily's help. Common Thread's small team handled manufacturing with fierce efficiency. They set a launch date, December 15th, right before the holiday shopping surge. They built a simple website. They created social media accounts. They told Scarlett's story, not as victimization, but as proof that fashion could serve real women. The night before launch, Scarlett stood in the warehouse holding Lily, looking at racks of finished pieces. Her designs, her vision, made real without Thomas Blake's approval. She posted the launch announcement at midnight. The website crashed 12 minutes after launch. We're getting 10,000 hits per minute, Emily breathed, staring at her laptop screen in the warehouse office. Scarlett, nursing Lily in the corner, went still. What? The collective's tiny team scrambled to upgrade servers while social media exploded. Fashion bloggers found the collection. The story spread. Pregnant designer fired by fashion mogul launches her rejected designs independently. The maternity pieces photographed beautifully, real women modeling them, showing how the cuts accommodated real bodies while maintaining structure and elegance. Comments flooded in. Where's this been all my life? Finally, someone who understands. Take my money. Within hours, orders exceeded their entire projected quarterly revenue. By midnight, they'd sold 30,000 pieces, and the warehouse was chaos. Emily coordinating emergency production runs, textile suppliers calling with congratulations, fashion journalists requesting interviews. Scarlett sat in the eye of the storm, Lily sleeping against her shoulder, watching her phone light up with notifications. One message caught her attention. A screenshot from a fashion industry forum where anonymous buyers analyzed the collection's technical brilliance, its market disruption, its dangerous success. Someone wrote, "This is what happens when you underestimate talent." Another, "Blake Fashion just lost millions." The warehouse phone rang. Emily answered, listened, turned to Scarlett with wide eyes. That was a buyer from Nordstrom. They want to carry us. Thomas Blake learned about the crisis on a Monday morning, 14 weeks after firing Scarlett Archer. His board convened an emergency meeting without warning him, interfering in 20 years anyone had ambushed him in his own conference room. They were already seated when he arrived, tablets displaying sales analytics, market disruption charts, social media sentiment tracking. His CFO spoke first. There's a competitor eating our maternity and adaptive wear demographics. Started 6 weeks ago. They've generated $80 million in revenue. Thomas went still. $80 million. Who? Brand called Common Thread, small collective out of Brooklyn. They launched a maternity collection that's gone viral. Every fashion journal is calling it revolutionary, the future of inclusive design. His head of strategy projected images on the screen. Elegant wrap dresses, architectural trousers, blazers that accommodated bodies without sacrificing silhouette. Thomas's chest tightened. He knew these designs. The market they're capturing, his CFO continued, is revenue we considered beneath us. Except it's not. It's massive and underserved, and this collective understood it perfectly. Worse, our brand perception is tanking. We're being called elitist, out of touch, hostile to women's real needs. Someone else jumped in. Retailers are demanding we respond, create our own maternity line, adapt our aesthetic, show we're listening. No, Thomas's voice cut through. We don't chase trends. We define them. His CMO leaned forward. With respect, Thomas, this isn't a trend. This is a hole in our market position that someone else filled. A hole we created by rejecting innovation. Silence settled over the room. Thomas felt the judgment, barely concealed. I want to know everything about Common Thread. Who runs it? Who designs for them? What their vulnerabilities are? His board exchanged glances. We already have that information, the CFO said quietly. Would you like to see it? The report arrived in Thomas's email 20 minutes later. He read it, changing at his office window, the Manhattan skyline cold and bright beyond the glass. Common Thread. Founded 18 months ago. 3 employees, warehouse in Bushwick, ethical sourcing, profit-sharing model. Lead designer, Scarlett Archer. The name hit him like a physical blow. He clicked through attached photos, surveillance shots of Scarlett in the warehouse workspace, her body, post-pregnancy, moving with that same focused grace he remembered. In one photo, she nursed an infant while pattern-cutting one-handed, fabric shears balanced on the table, late afternoon light streaming through industrial windows. In another, she laughed with her team, exhaustion visible under her eyes, but her posture unbroken. Thomas set his phone down carefully on his desk. His hands weren't steady. The report detailed everything. How she'd sent her portfolio to 20 collectives after he fired her. How Common Thread had believed in her vision. How the crowdfunding and launch had exceeded every projection. How she'd turned his rejection into $80 million in 14 weeks. His board wanted him to acquire her company. Buy the threat, absorb it, neutralize it. Standard industry practice. He looked at the photo again. Scarlett's hands on fabric, her daughter sleeping nearby, her workspace a cathedral of natural light and purpose. She'd built something he didn't understand, something his empire couldn't touch. Thomas arrived at Common Thread's warehouse unannounced on a Wednesday afternoon. The building sat in Bushwick, converted industrial space with loading docks and steel frame windows, graffiti on one brick wall showing geometric flowers. He parked his Tesla and stared at the entrance. Inside he could see fabric racks, cutting tables, a small team moving with efficient purpose. He hadn't prepared a pitch. This wasn't a boardroom negotiation. He entered through the main door, triggering a bell. Heads turned. A young woman in overalls, Emily Kim, according to his report, approached. Can I help you? I'm here to see Scarlett Archer. Emily's expression sharpened. Do you have an appointment? No. He didn't offer his name. He didn't need to. Emily studied him for 3 long seconds, taking in the Loro Piana jacket, the custom shoes, the careful distance he maintained from everything around him. Wait here, she said flatly, and disappeared toward a glass-walled office in the corner. Through the windows, Thomas watched Emily speak to someone out of his sightline. A long pause. Then, Scarlett appeared in the doorway. She wore work clothes, black trousers, a white button-down with the sleeves rolled, her auburn hair pulled back. She looked at him across 30 feet of warehouse floor. Her face showed nothing. No surprise, no anger, no recognition of what his appearance here cost him. She simply waited. Thomas crossed the space. Every step felt like walking toward judgment. Scarlett didn't move from the office doorway, didn't invite him in. Behind her, he could see a baby carrier on the desk, a small form sleeping inside. "Ms. Archer," he began. "What do you want, Mr. Blake?" Her voice was calm, flat, the tone she might use with a difficult supplier. It cut deeper than shouting would. Scarlett let him into the office but didn't offer a chair. She returned to her cutting table where a pattern lay half-finished, fabric pinned at precise intervals, her shears resting nearby. Thomas stood near the door, suddenly aware that in this space, he had no authority. "I'm here to discuss a partnership," he said. "Your collection has demonstrated significant market traction. Blake Fashion would like to acquire Common Thread." Scarlett didn't look up. Her hands smoothed the fabric, checking the drape. "No." "I haven't stated terms yet." "I don't need to hear them." Her fingers adjusted a pin by millimeters. "You fired me when I was 7 months pregnant because my designs for pregnant women offended you. Now those same designs have earned $80 million and you want to own them?" The answer is no. Thomas felt the conversation slipping away from him. "I'm offering." "I know what you're offering." Now she did look up, hazel eyes meeting his. "Money, distribution, the Blake Fashion name, access to your empire." She paused. "In exchange for giving you control of something you called worthless 3 months ago. Did I miss anything?" The baby stirred in the carrier, making soft sounds. Scarlett moved to her, lifted her with practiced ease, settled her against one shoulder. The movement was casual, competent. Thomas found himself watching, transfixed by the efficiency of it. "If it's about ownership percentage," Scarlett cut him off with a laugh, sharp and brief. "You think this is about percentage points?" She returned to her cutting table, the baby now awake and alert against her shoulder, gray eyes staring at him. "Let me ask you something, Mr. Blake. Why does someone who found my work distracted and compromised now need it?" Thomas had no answer that didn't damn him. Thomas didn't leave. Against every instinct that said to retreat, regroup, strategize from his tower, he stayed. Scarlett ignored him, continuing her work with Lily balanced on one hip, occasionally setting her daughter in the carrier when she needed both hands. The warehouse hummed around them, Emily coordinating shipments, seamstresses working on production samples, the whir of industrial sewing machines creating a constant backdrop. He watched Scarlett adjust a pattern, her hands certain and quick. She was working on evening wear now, a cocktail dress with concealed nursing access that looked nothing like traditional maternity wear. "How does that work?" he asked finally, unable to stop himself. She glanced at him. "The design?" "Making it functional without compromising the line." Something flickered in her expression, not softening, but recognition that he'd asked a real question. She showed him the concealed zipper placement, the interior panel system, how the fabric drape accommodated but didn't advertise. "Most maternity wear treats pregnancy like something to hide or apologize for," she explained, her voice clinical, professional. "I design for women who want to be beautiful and functional. It's not a contradiction." Over the next hour, she took a phone consultation with a customer who was nursing twins, made notes about adaptations, showed him the database of client feedback that informed every design decision. Thomas realized he was witnessing something he'd never considered. Fashion in conversation with real bodies, real needs, not dictating beauty, serving it. Late afternoon light slanted through the windows, turning her workspace golden. Lily had fallen asleep again. Scarlett's hands never stopped moving, sketching, adjusting, pinning. Thomas felt something unfamiliar settling in his chest. Not attraction, though he was aware of her physically, the grace of her movements, the strength in her scarred hands, the fierce intelligence behind her calm dismissal of him. It was something closer to awe. This woman had taken his worst judgment and built something truer than anything in his empire. Days passed. Thomas returned to the warehouse each morning offering new terms that Scarlett refused without looking up from her work. His board demanded progress reports. He gave vague updates, buying time for something he couldn't name. On Thursday evening, the warehouse emptied early, Emily taking the team for drinks to celebrate hitting $5 million in sales that week. Scarlett stayed, working on a new pattern, Lily sleeping in the carrier beside her. Thomas hadn't left either. The silence between them had shifted over days of proximity, less hostile, more weighted with unspoken questions. Scarlett set down her shears. She looked at him directly, and he felt that gaze like a physical touch. "What were you afraid of?" she asked. "When you saw me pregnant in your design studio? What scared you so much that you had to destroy me?" The question hung in the warehouse air, underscored by the hum of heating systems, the distant sound of traffic. Thomas's first instinct was to deflect, deny, turn it into a business discussion. But something about the directness of her eyes, the weight of these days watching her work, stopped him. "My mother," he said finally. His voice sounded strange to him. "She was 6 months pregnant with my sister when she collapsed. I was 14, homesick in the next room. I heard her fall." Scarlett went very still. "She died," Thomas continued. "They both did. And my father, he just disappeared into grief. I was alone by 15. He looked at the sleeping baby in the carrier, gray eyes closed, small chest rising and falling. So when I see pregnancy, when I see that vulnerability, I see everything I couldn't control, everything I couldn't save, everything that destroys." The confession cost him. He felt exposed, flayed. But Scarlett didn't offer comfort. She nodded once, absorbing it. Then she spoke. "I was fired from 2 other jobs before yours. Both times because I got pregnant. Both times because people decided motherhood made me less capable, less committed, less valuable. Your rejection wasn't unique, Mr. Blake. It was just the one that finally made me angry enough to prove you all wrong." The confession shifted the air between them. Scarlett returned to her pattern, but the quality of the silence had changed. Charged, fragile, honest. Thomas moved closer to the cutting table, watching her hands on the fabric. "I was wrong," he said quietly. She didn't respond immediately. Her shears sliced through silk with a sound like tearing paper. "Yes," she said finally. "You were. These designs." He gestured at the warehouse, the racks of finished pieces, the orders stacking up on tablets around the space. "They're extraordinary. Not despite your pregnancy, not despite Lily. They're extraordinary because you understood something about women's bodies, women's lives, that I was too afraid to see." Scarlett set down the shears. She turned to face him fully. They were standing close now, the cutting table between them the only boundary. "And now you want to profit from that understanding?" "No." The word came out too fast. Thomas stopped, regrouped. "I want to learn from it. I want—" He struggled for truth. "I want to be part of something that doesn't require perfection, that doesn't equate vulnerability with failure." Her eyes searched his face. The warehouse was very quiet except for Lily's soft breathing. "You hurt me," Scarlett said. not just professionally. You looked at me carrying my daughter and saw something disgusting, something that made me less than human. Thomas felt the words like blows. I know. So why would I let you anywhere near what I've built? The question was genuine, not rhetorical. He had no good answer, only the truth. Because I think you're a better designer than I've ever been. Because your vision of fashion that serves, that includes, that makes space for real life, is what the industry needs. And because... He paused, the admission scraping out of him. Because watching you work this week has been the most honest thing I've experienced in 20 years. Scarlett's hand moved, almost involuntarily, toward where his rested on the edge of the cutting table. Her fingers stopped an inch away. The space between them vibrated with possibility. Then Lily woke with a small cry, and the moment broke. Over the following week, the tension between them intensified. Thomas brought coffee in the mornings, her order memorized from watching her grab cups between feedings. He asked questions about her design process, took notes like a student. He watched her consult with customers via video calls, seeing how she translated their needs into beautiful solutions. Scarlett maintained professional distance, but allowed him into her work, into her thinking. She challenged his assumptions about fashion, about beauty, about the purpose of design. Late one evening, they were alone again, Emily having left after a production meeting, Lily sleeping in her carrier. Scarlett was working on a particularly complex pattern, a blazer with hidden expansion panels that accommodated changing bodies without visible seams. Thomas had moved to her side of the table, watching her hands mark the fabric. Here, she said, taking his hand and guiding it to feel the fabric's weight. This is what you're looking for. Substantial enough to hold structure, fluid enough to move with the body. Her fingers on his wrist were warm, certain. His breath caught. Scarlett. She looked up at him. They were close, the pattern between them, her hand still on his. Outside, Brooklyn night pressed against the windows. Tell me the rest, she said quietly. About your mother. About why you're really here. So he did. He told her about the funeral, about building his empire as armor, about the terror of softness, about the pristine, empty penthouse he lived in where nothing unexpected ever happened, about how her rejection of his acquisition offers had forced him to question everything he'd built. Scarlett listened, her hand still touching his. When he finished, she shared more of her story, the panic of those early firings, the rage that sustained her through pregnancy alone, the determination to make her daughter's existence proof of strength rather than weakness. I built this collective, she said, to prove that creation and caretaking aren't opposing forces, that we're stronger when we make space for life in our work. She paused, her other hand moving to rest on the fabric shears beside her. You're asking me to trust you with that vision, after you tried to destroy me for it. Thomas's hand turned, catching hers. I know. The warehouse hummed around them, heat cycling through old pipes. They were close enough that he could feel her breath, see the pulse at her throat. Not before the work is right, she said, stepping back gently. Her hand slipped from his. If we do this, if I let you in, it can't be romance as acquisition. It has to be partnership. Equal. Honest. Real. Thomas went back to his tower and tore apart his company's structure. He brought in lawyers, accountants, documents that rewrote ownership and credit systems. He worked for 48 hours straight, barely sleeping, living on coffee and the certainty that if he was going to earn Scarlett's trust, he couldn't do it with words. He had to do it with sacrifice. On Saturday morning, he arrived at the warehouse with a folder of documents. The team was there, Emily, the seamstresses, the pattern makers. Scarlett was nursing Lily in the corner office. Thomas walked in and set the folder on her cutting table. "What's this?" she asked, not taking it. "A proposal. Real one, this time." His voice was rough from exhaustion. "Not acquisition. Partnership." She shifted Lily to her shoulder, opened the folder. Thomas watched her read, saw her eyes widen. "You're offering equal creative director credit," she said slowly. 50-50 profit share on any collaborative line. Joint decision-making authority, with you having final say on design," he interrupted. "And I'm issuing a public statement. Today, taking responsibility for firing you, acknowledging I was wrong, announcing that Blake Fashion will be partnering with Common Thread to create an inclusive design division with you as lead." Scarlett looked up at him. "Why?" "Because you were right. Fashion should serve women, not punish them. Because I was afraid of vulnerability and that fear made me cruel. Because," he stopped, forced himself to hold her gaze. "Because you deserve credit for your vision. Public, unambiguous, permanent credit." She stood, still holding Lily, and crossed to where he was standing. The office felt very small. "If I sign this," she said quietly, "it's not a path to getting me. It's a partnership. Maybe nothing more." "I know." She searched his face. Outside the office, her team was pretending not to watch. Emily had her phone out, probably texting. "And if your board revolts?" "Then I'll deal with it." Scarlett set Lily in the carrier, picked up a pen, and signed the documents. Her signature was sure, elegant, final. Then she looked at Thomas. "Now," she said, and kissed him. The kiss was careful, testing, both of them aware of the weight it carried. When they broke apart, Scarlett's cheeks were flushed, but her eyes were steady. "Not here," she said. "Not with your empire still structured to reject everything I believe in." Thomas nodded. "Monday, my office. I'll present the partnership to the board." "We'll present it," Scarlett corrected. "Together." That weekend, Thomas didn't sleep. He prepared a presentation that rewrote Blake Fashion's brand identity. He included market analysis, revenue projections, but more. He included Scarlett's client testimonials, images of real women in her designs, data showing the massive underserved market that his fear had blinded him to. He included his own confession. "I rejected innovation because I confused vulnerability with weakness. I was wrong. This partnership is how we fix that." Monday morning, his board gathered in the conference room where he'd fired Scarlett 14 weeks ago. This time, she walked in beside him, Lily in a carrier against her chest, wearing one of her own designs, a structured blazer over elegant trousers, professional and unapologetically maternal. The board stared. Thomas began the presentation. He showed them the numbers, Common Thread's $80 million in revenue, the market share Blake Fashion was losing, the demographic shifts they'd ignored. Then he showed them Scarlett's vision. Fashion that didn't force women to choose between capability and caregiving, between beauty and function, between power and humanity. "This partnership," he concluded, "makes us better, makes us relevant, makes us honest." His CFO leaned forward. "You're proposing giving an external designer equal authority over Blake Fashion's creative direction?" "No," Scarlett said, speaking for the first time. "He's proposing we build something new together. A division within Blake Fashion that operates on different principles, where design serves real needs, where beauty includes actual bodies, where we stop gatekeeping and start listening." The room fell silent. Thomas watched his board calculate risk versus reward, control versus innovation, comfort versus change. Finally, his CMO spoke. The market data supports this. Ethically, this is the right move. Practically, it positions us ahead of inevitable industry shifts. Others nodded slowly. His CFO asked detailed questions about profit structure, which Scarlett answered with precision. By noon, they voted to approve the partnership. Thomas felt something in his chest unlock. When the meeting ended, he and Scarlett stood at his office window overlooking Manhattan. Lily slept between them in her carrier. "This isn't a happy ending," Scarlett said quietly. "It's a beginning." "I know." He took her hand. "Is it enough?" She looked at him, really looked, her gaze steady and uncompromising. "Ask me again when your actions match your words." Then she kissed him again, and this time it tasted like possibility. 2 weeks into the partnership, Thomas's board fractured. 3 members resigned in protest, calling the arrangement a capitulation to political correctness and a betrayal of brand values. Shareholders demanded an emergency meeting. Industry press ran articles questioning his judgment, his leadership, whether he'd gone soft. The pressure was immense. His CFO presented alternative plans: restructure the partnership, reduce Scarlett's authority, maintain traditional brand divisions. "You can still partner with her," his lawyer said carefully, "but maybe with less public commitment to this inclusive vision, softer messaging." Thomas sat in his office that night reading the coverage. Scarlett was in Brooklyn dealing with her own crisis. Common Thread's original investors were nervous about associating with Blake Fashion, worried the brand would dilute their ethical mission. They were offering to buy her out, let her walk away with profit and independence. He called her at midnight. "Your investors want you to leave." "Yes." "Are you going to?" A pause. "Are you going to soften your commitment to this partnership?" "No," he said immediately. "Then neither am I. We do this together or not at all." The conviction in her voice steadied him. "My board wants me to restructure, give you less authority, make this less visible, protect the traditional brand identity." "What do you want?" Scarlett asked. Thomas looked around his office, the empire he'd built on control and fear, the perfection that required eliminating everything soft. "I want to build something true," he said, "even if it costs me everything else." The crisis escalated. A competitor, Vaughn Luxury Group, saw the instability and launched a hostile takeover attempt. They approached Common Thread's collective directly, offering to buy them out for triple their current valuation, freezing Thomas out entirely. Emily called Scarlett at 3 a.m. "They're offering us $30 million, cash, no strings. They want your designs, they'll keep our ethical model, and you'd have complete creative freedom." Scarlett sat in her dark bedroom, Lily sleeping beside her, and felt the weight of the decision. Complete financial security. Independence from Thomas's complicated empire. Proof that she didn't need him. She could take it. Should take it. But then she thought about the last 2 weeks. Thomas in the warehouse, learning her process. Thomas facing down his board, refusing to soften. Thomas teaching himself to hold Lily correctly, his terror and tenderness visible in equal measure. She texted him, "We need to talk. Now." They met at the warehouse at dawn. Thomas arrived to find Scarlett already there, working despite the early hour, Lily in the carrier beside her. "Vaughn wants to buy us," she said without preamble. $30 million. They'd keep the ethical model, give me creative freedom, and you'd be out. Thomas went still. "Are you taking it?" "That depends on you." She set down her shears. "What are you willing to risk for this partnership? Really risk?" "What do you need?" "Proof that you mean it. that this isn't about acquiring me or my work, that you're genuinely committed to transforming how Blake Fashion operates. She pulled out her tablet, showed him a proposal she'd drafted. I want co-chair position at Blake Fashion, equal board authority, veto rights over any decision that contradicts our inclusive design principles. And I want common thread to remain independent, a joint venture where both companies benefit but neither controls. Thomas read it. Every point ceded power he'd never shared, authority he'd never relinquished. His lawyers would call it insanity. His board might revolt completely. But as he read Scarlett's requirements, he realized this was what partnership actually meant. Not acquisition with extra steps. Actual sharing of power with someone he trusted more than he trusted his own fear. Yes, he said, to all of it. Scarlett's expression didn't change. You'll lose shareholders. Your board might fire you. Vaughn could still target Blake Fashion directly. I know. So why? Thomas looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully despite the tension in the room. Because you're right. About fashion, about inclusion, about partnership. And because I'd rather build something real with you than maintain my empire alone. Scarlett picked up her tablet, began drafting the response to Vaughn. Then we do it together. All the way. The joint venture announcement sent shockwaves through the fashion industry. Thomas and Scarlett held a press conference, standing side by side, presenting the new structure. Common Thread remained independent, with Scarlett as CEO, but entered formal partnership with Blake Fashion's new inclusive design division. Scarlett received co-chair position at Blake Fashion with equal board authority. All designs carried both names with equal prominence. Profit sharing remained 50-50. The fashion press called it unprecedented. Business journals analyzed it as a new model for corporate partnership. Social media exploded with reactions, some celebrating, others predicting disaster. Thomas's remaining board members split. Half resigned immediately, calling it a power grab by someone who doesn't understand luxury fashion. Half stayed, recognizing the market shift Scarlett represented. At an emergency shareholders meeting, Thomas was forced to defend not just the partnership, but his entire vision. Blake Fashion was built on exclusion, he said, standing at the front of the conference room, Scarlett beside him. On defining beauty so narrowly that we rejected millions of women. That model is dying, and it should die. A major shareholder stood. You're destroying brand value in service of political correctness. Scarlett stepped forward. I'm a designer who was fired for being pregnant, who built an $80 million company in 14 weeks because I understood something your brand missed. Women want beauty that includes them, not punishes them. This isn't politics. It's business. And it's right. The room erupted in argument. Thomas watched shareholder value calculations war with moral recognition. When the vote came, the result was narrow. The partnership stood, but Thomas's authority was reduced. He was no longer majority-controlling shareholder. He was accountable to a board that now included Scarlett as equal voice. Walking out of the meeting, Thomas felt lighter than he'd been in 20 years. You just ceded control of your empire, Scarlett said quietly. I know. Are you okay? He looked at her, exhausted, brilliant, holding Lily with one arm while managing crisis texts with the other. Better than okay. For the first time, I'm part of something bigger than my fear. That night, alone in his penthouse, Thomas stood at the window overlooking Manhattan. His empire was smaller, his authority shared, his control relinquished. But when Scarlett texted him a photo of Lily asleep beside new design sketches, he found himself smiling. The aftermath was messy. Thomas spent weeks in meetings, restructuring Blake Fashion's operations to align with the new partnership. Scarlett divided her time between Brooklyn and Manhattan, her presence in Thomas's tower still drawing stares and whispers. They were navigating not just business partnership, but whatever was growing between them, complicated by authority dynamics, by past harm, by the reality that she was building something while caring for an infant while dealing with the man who'd tried to destroy her. Late one Friday, after another grueling board presentation, they were alone in Thomas's office. Lily was with Emily for the evening. The city glittered below them. "I keep waiting for you to leave," Scarlett said, standing at the window. "For this to become another acquisition attempt disguised as partnership." Thomas moved to stand beside her. "I'm not going anywhere." "You say that now. But when the next crisis comes, when your shareholders revolt again, when maintaining this partnership costs more than your comfort?" He turned her to face him. "Scarlett, I chose you. Not your designs, not your market share. You, your vision, your refusal to compromise what fashion should be." "That's romantic," she said, but her eyes were uncertain. "It's also true." He took a breath. "My whole life, I've equated control with safety. If I could eliminate every soft thing, every vulnerable thing, I thought I'd be untouchable. Then you forced me to see what I'd become. Someone who mistook hardness for strength, someone who hurt people because I was terrified of being hurt." Scarlett's hand found his. "I was terrified of trusting you. Part of me still is." "I know. But watching you actually change, giving up control, facing your board, choosing partnership over empire," her voice caught. "It makes me believe we might actually build something real." Thomas pulled her closer. The city spread below them, infinite and indifferent. "Stay," he said simply. "Not as my employee, not as my acquisition, not as anything except my equal. Stay and build this with me." Scarlett looked up at him, her hazel eyes searching his face. Then she kissed him, slowly, deliberately, a kiss that tasted like trust earned through sacrifice. When they broke apart, she was smiling. "Okay." "Okay?" "Okay. I'm staying. But if you ever try to acquire me, I won't," he promised. "I'm done trying to own what I should honor." They stayed at the window until the city lights blurred into dawn, planning the future they'd build together. 6 months later, Blake Fashion and Common Thread debuted their joint collection at New York Fashion Week. The show was unlike anything the industry had seen. Models of all body types, including pregnant women, women using mobility aids, women across age ranges. Scarlett's designs showcased her vision fully realized, clothing that served real bodies while creating genuine beauty. Backstage, chaos and joy intermingled. Thomas adjusted a rack of garments with the careful attention he once reserved for perfection, now channeled toward service. Scarlett directed the show flow while nursing Lily, who was nearly 7 months old now, her auburn hair growing into curls, her gray eyes bright and watchful. The media presence was overwhelming. Fashion journalists, bloggers, major publications, everyone wanted the story of the designer who turned rejection into revolution, the CEO who gave up his empire for partnership. When the show began, Thomas stood backstage with Lily in a carrier he'd designed himself, architectural, functional, beautiful. Scarlett had designed it with him over late nights in the warehouse, teaching him her process, her principles. The carrier had become a symbol, fashion that made space for life. The collection received a standing ovation. Models returned for the finale walk, and Thomas guided Scarlett forward. She hesitated. This was her triumph, her vision vindicated. But he stayed beside her, his hand on her back, supporting, not controlling. They walked out together. The applause was deafening. Cameras flashed. Lily slept through it all, secure against Thomas's chest. Scarlett took the microphone. This collection exists because someone told me pregnancy made me worthless as a designer. They were wrong. Motherhood, vulnerability, the messy complexity of real life, these don't make us less. They make us truer. Fashion should serve that truth, not punish it. She looked at Thomas. And this partnership exists because someone was willing to admit they were wrong, to give up control in favor of collaboration, to choose truth over comfort. Thomas felt the weight of her words, the grace of her public acknowledgement. In the front row, he saw Emily with the Common Thread team, several of his board members who'd stayed, journalists, live tweeting, fashion students taking notes. The future watching the present transform. Later at the after-party, someone asked Scarlett what was next. She smiled, her hand finding Thomas's. "We keep building," she said. "Keep making space for beauty that includes everyone. Keep proving that partnership is stronger than power." Thomas added, "Keep learning that the best thing you can do for something beautiful is get out of its way and let it thrive." They left early, tired and triumphant. In the car, Lily woke and babbled at them. Thomas drove through Manhattan, Scarlett's hand in his, their daughter between them, their empire transformed into something neither could have built alone. The city lights swept past. He didn't miss the man he was, the one who built towers against fear. He preferred the man becoming, someone who made space for life, who honored vulnerability, who knew that real strength was measured in what you were willing to share, not what you could control. Scarlett leaned against him. "You know this isn't a fairy tale ending." "I know. It's better. It's real." "It is," she agreed, and kissed him one more time. Their partnership sealed not in romance, but in the daily choice to build something true, together.